My name is Reid Schlegel. I'm an industrial designer, and today we're going to talk about my marker rendering techniques. So when starting a marker render, I always start with the lightest color marker, or in this case, a C2. This allows me to draw my sketch on the piece of paper in a way that allows me to be super flexible. When I use a light marker opposed to a pen or a pencil, I can continually draw over and over, allowing the sketch to really work itself out. This allows me to really make sure that the foundations are correct, aka the perspective and the composition. So when I'm doing this, it means that I'm putting all of the legwork in the beginning to make sure that I'm setting myself up for success when I actually go to add marker later. Because marker is just something that can make a sketch look really great or can really mess it up. And if you're going to spend the time to put marker on a piece of paper, you want to make sure that everything that precedes it is perfect so it does not distract the audience and you don't finish a whole 2-hour-long sketch, take a step back and realize that something about it is distracting. So when drawing with a light C2 marker, it's great to think about the composition. A sketch is something that's supposed to communicate an idea, but doesn't mean that it also can't be beautiful and really visually appealing. One way I like to get this across is by thinking about the composition of my page up front. So with this light marker, I'll rough in where the object will go, and then filling in the negative space with the title or the name of the concept, different callouts, or different zoomed-in views that allow you to see the parts of the concept that are the most important. Because the most important thing to think about when drawing anything is making sure that somebody can understand what it is that you are actually trying to get across. And a composition that is very well thought through can do this in a very, very easy to understand manner. The marker rendering style that I like to use sticks to a very specific hierarchy. What I mean by this is I do not like to jump around when I'm actually drawing. I don't put a piece of marker and then a line and then a highlight. I like to do things that are in order that consecutively clean up the steps before it. This allows you to start out very loose in the beginning with your light marker and have your drawing by the end look like it was done on the computer. This is something that I think is very magical for people, where you don't have to be super tight in the beginning, but it actually results in something that looks like you knew exactly what you wanted from the first line you put on the piece of paper. So once you have your base sketch down in your light colored marker, I like to go ahead and start putting down some line work. So if you've seen the videos we did previously, we'll talk a lot about line work. And what I like to start with these sketches is basically putting down the thinnest lines first. And when you're putting these lines down, it's always good to think about working from the front to the back. So obviously your sketch is a two-dimensional object, but you want it to be as three-dimensional as possible. When you have your base sketch down, it allows you to visualize it first and then go ahead and put the lines down. So ones that are in front are the ones you want to put first, because if you draw something that's in the back of your sketch and then you try and go back later and put things in front of it, you're not going to be able to fix those lines that now intersect. And that's going to make the things that are in front look as if they're transparent. So basically, look at your sketch, think about what are the longest straight lines that are in the closest to the foreground and put those lines down first. Once these lines are down, it's really good to go in and start thinking about what your medium length lines are. This is a place where you can either draw them by hand or use a ruler depending on how comfortable you are or what type of tightness you want your sketch to have. When you put these lines down, the same rules apply, work from the front to the back, but keep them all consistent and try and make sure you're really following your perspective vanishing points. Because having a drawing that's in perspective is first and foremost the most important thing before you do anything else, especially putting down marker. Lastly, think through what lines are more organic or need either ship curves or can be drawn by hand or are very small details. These are the lines that I like to put in last because they're the ones that have the least structure behind them. Things that are straight and are going to a vanishing point are very easy to rationally figure out and put down on paper. When you do things that are a little more curved or require you to actually have fine hand movements, those are the ones that can have a little bit of wiggle room for error. So those going down last with having the rest of your lines put into perspective first means you have a much higher chance of having them be perfectly put into perspective. So in summary, work from the front to the back, draw your longest lines first, and then successfully go down in lines that are shorter and ones that start to get more organic. This will allow you to really make sure that everything looks as if it is stacked up in space properly and really make sure that no mistakes come through that can't be fixed later. Because putting down a dark line means you have committed to it. And when you have something that's committed to the page, it is very hard to go back and change that. That's one way in which I'm able to start super loose and have my sketches come to be a really tight, clean style by the end because I was meticulous with what went down when and making sure it was cleaning up something that had gone down before it. Hey everyone, click below to see the full version of this sketch and get all the details.